what do you do when the people that you love are triggering you? I mean, you can do all the inner work. You can read every book. You can still fall apart at the dinner table because someone made a comment on your body. That's what I want to talk about today. We're going to talk about the people in your life who maybe sometimes make your relationship with food or eating or your body a little bit harder. I mean, maybe that's your mum, right? Mum who's always on a diet, or a partner who sometimes makes comments, or a friend who pushes food on you, or maybe a friend who doesn't eat anything at all. There's lots of different people like this in our life, and it's time to chat about that relational side of binge and emotional eating. And yeah, it is really hard. It is so hard. And healing in isolation, which we often do, that's hard. But healing while someone across the table is impacting your progress, that's a different kind of hard. So I'm going to explain why other people's behavior around food affects you probably much more than you think or want it to. And I'm going to give you some practical strategies for what you can actually say in those moments, some real scripted examples that you can steal. And I'm also going to tell you what to do when someone you love they're just not going to change. That's the reality of it, and it's not yours to carry. Let's get into it. Hey besties, welcome back to the podcast for women who are done diluting themselves with, diet culture's bullshit, and they're ready to go be their whole vibrant selves. I'm Nick Garbedia. I'm a registered counsellor. I'm a recovered binge eater myself, and I am a committed diet culture dismantler. So to help you do that, I'm going to be talking about something that I think is maybe one of the topics that's a bit underserved in this whole food freedom space. What we're going to be talking about is the people around you, the people that you love, the people that you respect, and how sometimes they can be quite triggering. So much of the recovery conversation is centered on you, right? Your habits, your triggers, your nervous system, your inner dialogue. And yes, we've got to do that work. We've got to go there on those topics. But the reality is, you're not eating in a vacuum, are you? You are eating with other people. You're eating in the community and in families, within your friendships. You eat next to a partner, maybe. And some of these people, at times, can be a bit of a nightmare for your healing. So let's get into maybe who these people are, why they affect you the way they do. And I'm also going to give you some practical strategies and some scripts, as I mentioned at the start. Real world, real situations. Let's get some tools under your belt, right? I know that when you know something is a trigger, that's just like half the job, right? But when you actually know what to do about it, you can go away, give it a go, see if it helps. So let's get into it. Let's start off by talking about the mum who's always on a diet. And I want to start here because it's the most common one. I hear it all the time. Maybe it's in your life. Maybe you grew up watching your mum. Maybe she was always like calorie counting, doing her macros, being naughty, having a guilty treat, whatever the currency was of that decade. Maybe there's foods that were bad or naughty or foods that were good. And of course, you absorbed all of that, long before you were old enough to think critically about it. Or maybe she comments on your body now. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she comments on hers. Again, all of that matters because you've been watching for a long time and you've been taking notes. And I did a prior episode on parenting. So if you want to go back and listen to that for yourself, I mean, the research is really showing that kids who grow up who watch a parent engaging in diet culture behaviors, they are way more likely to develop disordered eating behaviors themselves. And it's not because mum didn't care or she was malicious, right? It's just because kids are sponges. They watch the adults around them and they think, okay, this is how it works. This is how I relate to myself. This is what girls do around food. This is what food means. So, of course, when you fast forward to now and you're doing this work, you're trying to heal. That's why you're listening. You go home for dinner and maybe mum started her next new thing. Maybe she's talking about she was really bad at lunchtime. And when you hear that, you feel it, right? You feel that pull. You feel that static. And she's not trying to hurt you, but it doesn't mean it doesn't hurt because her relationship with food is hers. You have nothing to do with that. You didn't cause it. You can't fix it either. And her doing that at the table doesn't mean that you have to also ride with it or tolerate it, because that space between her behavior and your response, that's actually the space that you're building your recovery in. And you've got to do some practice. And I'll talk about this more soon. But let's talk about another person now. And that's the partner who makes comments. And this one can be really painful because, of course, it's so intimate. Maybe they say things about what you're eating. Maybe they've gone silent in a way that felt really loaded. Maybe they've tried to help. Maybe they're suggesting that you don't need that, or, oh, you've been so good lately. Are you sure? Maybe they're on their own thing. Maybe they're doing their own diet, or maybe they're just like super healthy and they want to drag the whole household into it and it feels like pressure. Partners in particular, they can make food comments because, of course, food and bodies are so deeply tied up into how we're taught to show other people we care about them, right? Especially for people who grew up in families where love looked like monitoring each other's health. I mean, they might think they're being genuinely helpful, but it actually doesn't make it okay. It means that you need to have a chat about it. And I know it's uncomfortable and it can be really scary. It doesn't mean that your partner is a bad person because they're saying these things from time to time. But early on in your recovery, you're probably still going to have moments where you need to say, hey, honey, I just need you not to comment on what I'm eating right now, please. And again, I'm sure that comment's not coming because they're trying to be mean, they're doing anything terrible, but you're in a really fragile phase, right? When you're healing. And even if it's well-meaning, still might land wrong. It still doesn't feel great. And so being able to say that to your partner and to have a conversation about it is actually part of your healing process too. It's really important. And I think most partners, the fact is, when you tell them how you're feeling, how those comments really land, they will adjust. Some won't. And if they won't, well, that's some really helpful conversation about the relationship. And that deserves its own conversation, right? Okay, so the next person I'm going to talk about is the friend who pushes food. The one who says, come on, just have one. Oh, you've been so good. Have a wee treat. And this person comes from a place of real warmth and love because food is their love language, right? They want you to enjoy themselves. They want to share. They've probably never thought about the impact of pressuring someone to eat when you've already said no. Like, you're full, you're done, but they keep pushing, right? We've all had this. The problem is when you're in your recovery, your ability to trust your hunger and fullness signals is probably a little shaky. You're learning to build that trust. And when you have someone who's overriding that with social pressure, even if it's lovingly, it trains your brain that external cues, they matter more than internal ones. So that's the opposite of what you're aiming to do while you're working on your relationship with food. So you don't need to explain this whole healing process to your friends, but you can say things like, thanks so much, but I'm good. I'm good. And hold that line. Be warm, be clear. Don't have to over-explain it. Because they continue to push and say, no, go on, have some. Say, hey, I'm not hungry right now. I'll have some more later if I'm up for it. Usually that will do the trick because it's not about rejecting them. You're not trying to be rude, but you are trying to honor what your body is telling you. And you can still participate in sharing love through food. And I really want you to. It's one of the joys in life. But I want you to be honoring your body. Okay, the last person I want to talk about is the friend who doesn't eat anything or very little. And this one can really fly under the radar as a trigger. And I think that's why it's so important to talk about it, right? So this could look like you go out for dinner. Maybe she orders a salad with no dressing and eats a little bit, pushes it around on her plate, waves away the dessert menu. Maybe she's saying things like, oh, I'm just watching myself lately, or I'm being super bad. Need to get back on track. Those old lines that we use on ourselves. And when you hear those kind of things, yes, it is going to trigger something. It's going to have this comparison come up, maybe some shame. Maybe you'll feel a sadness. Those kind of responses is your nervous system, and it's responding to a cue that it learned a long time ago. Diet culture comparison it's deeply grooved in your neural pathways, right? It's when we're sitting across from someone who's actively restricting, it can activate that pathway within you, even if you're not consciously going there. So what's going to be helpful is we notice it and we name it. So say, okay, I'm feeling these feelings. I'm kind of going into this comparison mode, but that's not information about me. And if this person is a regular in your life and it's happening a lot, then this might need to be a relationship where you have a bit more of an in-depth conversation and be really intentional about having some of your other tools available when you're with them. Your self-care strategies, your regulation strategies. Quick pause here, besties, because I want to share with you a free resource that might really, really help you. So if you're struggling with overeating, binges, emotional eating, or maybe food just feels like it has a little bit too much power over you, then I have created a free guide. It's called the Emotional Eater's Fix. So inside this guide, I'm breaking down some of the real reasons why this pattern has been happening. And I'm going to walk you through a few simple tools that you can start using straight away to shift your relationship with food and your body. It's totally free. You can just grab it through the link in the show notes. All right, let's jump back into the episode. I said I was going to give you practical strategies. So now's the time where you can go there. So we know that other people are a trigger. Cool, that's really useful. But what do we do about it? That is what's going to change things. That's what's going to protect our journey. In the breakup, I do a whole module on relationships, communication, protecting your recovery, because, it's real. And the relational piece, it's just not a nice to have sort of add-on. It is absolutely core. It's absolutely essential that you nail this. And that's why I give it its own module, right? Is we cannot control other people. We can't control what they say, what they order, what they share online. We can't control what's trendy in society, what ads are being pushed at us this week. We can't decide what some influencer is saying about cutting out sugar today. That stuff is everywhere, is constant, is not going away. We cannot control that. Maybe we can, filter, but we can control how we respond. And so one of the most powerful things that you can do in building on your recovery journey is having real clarity about where your limits are and your ability to hold them without every dinner, having to be a confrontation or a conflict. It doesn't have to be anything like that. And when I say the word boundary, sometimes boundary gets overused a wee bit. Sometimes boundaries are awesome, but you don't have to have a boundary for every single scenario. And a boundary is actually not a rule that you set for someone else. It is a limit that you hold for yourself, right? It's where you decide what you do when it's crossed. So you're not managing the other person's behavior. Again, we don't control others. We're just learning how to manage ours. And I think that's a really important distinction. So what is it going to look like in practice, right? So a few approaches. The one that you use is obviously going to depend on the relationship, the situation, and, even just how much capacity or energy you have that day, because not every scenario is going to have the same level of response. So approach one that I like to start with is using I statements. So this is where you are naming how something affects you and you're not framing it as them doing something wrong. So the formula is pretty simple. You say, when this happens, I feel this. And what I need is this. You hear those I statements in there? So we're keeping the focus on your experience. It's not putting them on trial. It's not getting into a tiff. It's giving them something really clear to respond to. So scripted example that you can steal Maybe your mom is at the table. She's talking about what she has ate and how she feels really terrible for having eaten that day. So you could say, using this framework, hey, mum, when the conversation's about dieting and food guilt, I find it really hard to stay present and enjoy this meal. I'm actually working on some stuff around my relationship with food, and I'd love it if we could talk about something else tonight. That's it. So you've described what's happening without being like, oh, you're always going on about this. Gosh, I'm so angry right now. It's describing what's happening without the blame. You've said how it affects you, and you've made a really clear request as well. You haven't done this casually. You've just been super clear, super clean, kind. You've been direct. Can't go wrong. Approach 2 is a firm redirect. Okay. So sometimes we don't have the bandwidth to go into such a big kind of response as I demonstrated before. So we don't have the bandwidth for it. Maybe you're at work. It's a work thing or a birthday dinner or you're just tired. That's fine. You're allowed to just change the subject and you don't need to justify it. No speech needed, right? So a script for this or an example for this could be that the group chat has blown up and everyone's talking about some new diet or something they've seen online and they're encouraging, hey, let's all do it together. So what you could say is, A, you could just totally ignore it. It's in a group chat. Actually, you didn't say it. Or you could say, it's not something I'm doing right now. On a different note, has anyone seen anything good lately? I really need a new show recommendation. Done. It's not weird. You haven't lectured anyone. You've just declined and then moved the conversation off. I think that's a really valid approach. We're always trying to be nice girls, good girls, people pleasers, right? You can still be a nice person and be warm and clear. There's no drama there. How about number 3, approach 3? And this is a direct conversation. So this is if the pattern keeps happening and happening and happening, and we're, that gentle redirect just isn't cutting it. So maybe you do actually need to call it out a little bit more. So example could be your partner. This is a really important relationship in your life. And maybe they just keep commenting on food regularly and it's starting to impact you at every meal. You could say, hey, honey, I want to have a quick chat about something. I want you to know that when you comment on what I'm eating, even if it's coming from a good place, I actually feel watched and I'm feeling a bit anxious and it's making mealtimes really stressful for me. So what I need from you, can just let me eat without the commentary. Not asking you to change what you eat or what you do, but I just really love this one thing from you. Notice that I use that I statement. You've acknowledged their intention without excusing the impact. You know it came from a good place. They're trying to be helpful. But you've also let them know, hey, it made me feel like this. And you've made a request. You've been specific and concrete about it. And it's not easy, I admit, but it will be so helpful for you. And what happens after that, if they don't follow through, that's on them. You've put the boundary in, and if it isn't respected, try to voice it again. Same words, stay calm. Hey, honey, I've mentioned this before, and it's actually still important to me. If they keep crossing that repeatedly after you've been super clear, then that is information. Okay. Not about you, not about your worth, but about how much this person is willing to show up for your healing. It's important. Now, what I want you to take from all of this today is that you don't have to earn the right to protect your healing. And you don't have to justify yourself. Don't have to wait until you're far enough along in recovery before you're allowed to be setting boundaries and holding limits. You can do it today. You can do it right from where you are. Every time you do this, what you're doing is you're sending your nervous system a message. You're letting yourself know, hey, I am safe. I've got my own back. I'm choosing me. And that's what recovery is, right? That's recovery in action. So the final part that I think will be really helpful for us to chat about today, it doesn't really get, I think, talked about enough. I want to talk about when someone in your life is also struggling with their relationship with food. And what can happen in those scenarios is sometimes that your healing and the changes in your behaviors and mindsets and language, all of that can actually feel really threatening to them. And it may not be conscious, but the fact is you're changing. You're opting out of the conversations around diet. You're eating more freely. You're not joining in on that, oh, I suck, I'm being so bad kind of chat. And what that does is it holds a mirror up to them. And sometimes they just don't want to go there. They're not ready. That's okay. Sometimes the person who pushes back on your recovery, or the person who's making comments or rolling their eyes, it's not because they're trying to be cruel. It's because, again, that mirror's being held up and you're showing them something about themselves and they are uncomfortable. It's distressing. And it's not your job to fix that for them. Stay in your lane. Focus on your healing. And be a role model. Be a living proof that actually there is another way and you can be happy and you can feel free around food. Sometimes the best thing that you can do for the people around you is just refuse to go back to that space and to keep moving forward. So before I let you go, let's just wrap this all up. Let's do a recap. Bring it back to what matters. The people around you aren't your enemy, right? They're part of the picture. And if you're pretending that they're not part of the picture and you're just soldiering your way through every dinner, getting triggered or feeling like every comment is really loaded and you don't have a plan, then you're going to burn yourself out. Okay, we can't control what mum says at the table. You can't necessarily control whether your partner gets this straight away, gets what you're trying to do. You can't control what your friend orders or doesn't, or what she says about it. You can control how you respond, okay? The words that you use, the limits that you hold, the choice to stay in your lane, even when everyone else around you is still kind of playing by diet culture's rules. That's the work, and it's quieter than people expect. It's actually not going to turn into big dramatic confrontations. Maybe some people, that's a them thing, but mostly it's going to look like just putting your fork down and saying, hey, not talking about my plate tonight. And it looks like being warm and clear and saying, hey, I'm good, thanks, when someone pushes food on you. Or it looks like changing the subject without feeling a need to apologize or not losing sleep over it. You are allowed to protect your healing. You don't have to earn that right. Again, don't need to explain it. Do not need to justify it. So I hope that was helpful. I will see you again next week. I'm here every week with another episode to support you into a life of food freedom, being binge free, having your shit together and feeling empowered. Let's talk again next week. Ciao. All right, besties, that's a wrap for today. If you want to go deeper, check out the links in my show notes. You're going to find free resources, ways we can work together, and more details on my signature program, The Breakup. This is your roadmap to help you to break free from binge and emotional eating for good. If this episode has helped you, please hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you're feeling extra kind, leaving a quick review really helps this podcast to reach more women who need it. Take care of your beautiful self, bestie, and I'll see you in the next episode. Ciao.